Degrees of Treason by Peter Lamb, prologue. The C-130 Hercules tore across the North Sea, its grey hull ghosting over black water. Radar silent. Lights off. No flight plan filed. The crew didn't speak. Not out of discipline, out of fear. Inside the belly of the plane were 6 sealed crates marked with mod insignias that no longer matched any official inventory. Alongside them, 2 steel briefcases, one locked with a biometric latch, the other protected by a 6-digit code that had changed every hour for the past week. The destination, an abandoned RF strip outside Perth, long decommissioned, supposedly buried under layers of paperwork and wild grass. But the tarmac had been cleared days ago. A lone hangar pulsed with faint blue light. Colonel Patrick Sutherland stood at the hangar's edge, his silhouette sharpened by the glow of portable flood lamps. Retired, officially. Yet he wore a modified uniform with no identifying rank. A man displaced from the chain of command, but still dangerous enough to have one of his own. Beside him stood Judith Rain, MP for South Norfolk, dressed not in heels and pearls, but military-grade boots and a Kevlar-lined coat. Her eyes were cold. Focused. The aircraft touched down with a shriek of rubber and brake flaps, its tail ramp descending before the engines had fully spooled down. Soldiers, no insignias, no names, unloaded the cargo in practiced silence. 2 of them wheeled the briefcases forward. Colonel Sutherland stepped up and placed his thumb against the biometric reader. Click. Inside, a red folder. A single sheet of paper. Typed. Unsigned. Untraceable. Rain read aloud. Commence contingency plan. Crown is no longer safe under current leadership. Restore balance through decisive transition. Civilian institutions are to be monitored and, if necessary, neutralized. Effective control is to be established by August. Begin with Edinburgh. She folded the paper, slid it back inside, and nodded once to the colonel. Sutherland looked toward the east, where a dull orange glow crept above the horizon. The students think they understand power, he muttered. Let's show them the real syllabus. The crates were loaded onto unmarked trucks. One of them bore university decals, borrowed from a department that didn't exist. The drivers weren't soldiers. They weren't even British. By the time the sun broke over the Scottish Highlands, the convoy had vanished. And with it, the first act of treason. The graduation ceremony was 6 days away. Chapter 1. The thesis that shouldn't exist. Leah Douglas had never believed in coincidences. Not when it came to power, not when it came to politics, and definitely not when her best friend Mia, the sharpest analyst in their political science cohort, ended up slipping on a dry stairwell 2 days after proposing they expand their thesis into active intelligence files. It began innocently enough, a research paper for their joint honours dissertation. Post-democracy and the myth of the benevolent state. Provocative, sure, but mostly theoretical. Until they included Case X, a data dump, encrypted files given to them by their tutor, Dr. Alan Vickers, under the pretense of off-the-record analysis. The files were supposed to simulate how a modern constitutional coup might unfold, using anonymized case studies and hypothetical scenarios. Except Dylan Raheim, their former Royal Signals classmate, decrypted more than he should have. What they found wasn't a case study. It was a playbook. 2 weeks earlier, Leah sat in the King James Library, lit in golden shafts of sunlight filtering through dust-covered panes. Across the table, Dylan leaned back in his chair, laptop glowing blue. "This isn't academic," he said. "This is real ops planning, mod level. There's signal routing, geofencing diagrams, encrypted metadata tagging RAF bases, and..." McEwen Hall. Leah frowned. "You sure it's not just modeled on real scenarios?" He flipped the laptop toward her. On screen, a PDF titled Echelon Protocol. Inside, codenamed personnel, supply chains through dormant mod logistics channels, psychological prep phases for the civilian population, a false flag activation scheduled for August 4th, target location, Edinburgh University convocation, McEwen Hall. "That's our graduation," Leah whispered. The air felt different now, the high ceilings of the library too silent. The thesis they'd worked on, intended as an academic exercise, had just become something far more dangerous. The denial spiral. At first, they laughed it off. Maybe Vickers had used classified material for realism. Maybe it was all just elaborate theatre. But then, the inconsistencies began. Emails between students started disappearing. Shared folders locked them out. Professor Vickers stopped showing up to lectures. And then came the knock. 2 men in suits appeared in the department office, claiming to be from the Ministry of Defense. One held a badge that said liaison. The other didn't speak. Leah saw them outside Vickers' office. Hours later, he was dead. Official cause, heart failure. Age, 47. The final drive. On a rainy Thursday, Leah found an envelope slid under her dorm door. No stamp, no note. Just a scratched-up USB drive and a folded post-it. Don't trust anyone, not even the police. The contents of the drive were incomplete, fragmented, but enough to confirm what Dylan suspected. This wasn't a drill. It was a real-world contingency plan to destabilize Parliament through a perceived national emergency, one that would allow martial law to be declared without the approval of the House, and it would begin at their graduation. The group. Only 5 people knew the full scope. 1. Leah Douglas, calm under pressure, politically connected via her father, MP Thomas Douglas. 2. Dylan Rahim, tactical, trained, disillusioned with the state after what he saw in Cyprus. 3. Mia Choudhury, deceased, listed as accidental death, probably not. 4. Ben Calder, data analysis savant, now missing. 5. Alexei Reed, fringe conspiracy theorist turned useful ally, last seen 2 nights ago, hasn't returned. Leah couldn't sleep. Every shadow in Edinburgh's historic closes felt like it held a spy. Every fire drill a signal. She pulled out her phone. No messages. No alerts. No Ben. No Alexei. But the news app updated. Body found near Arthur's seat. Identity withheld pending family notification. Escalation. They needed help. Dylan suggested going to the press. Leah vetoed it. The media was already riddled with polarization. Any leak would be discredited before the front page hit the stands. Then we go to your dad, Dylan said. My father wouldn't believe me, Leah replied. And even if he did, he'd tell the wrong person. He's old Labour. He still thinks the system works. They were running out of options, but not time. Time was marching toward the 4th of August. 10 days to go. He score. Surveillance begins. Leah started noticing familiar cars parked near her flat. Different license plates. Same models. Once, she passed a man outside her building, holding a copy of The Spectator. He didn't look up. Dylan confirmed it. That's a tale. They were being watched. But the watchers weren't police. Not uniformed. Not local. McEwen Hall, the heart of Edinburgh University. An ornate theatre under a great dome. It was meant to be the capstone of years of work. The final step before postgrad, Parliament internships, or policy fellowships. But now, it was a kill zone. If they hit that hall, Dylan said, they'll make it look like an act of terror, something foreign, something that justifies mobilizing the army. And it'll be the end of civilian trust, Leah added, exactly what they want. The map. They went to the meadows at midnight, a quiet park under the arms of the old town. Dylan drew the layout of McEwen Hall in the dirt with a stick. He pointed to a low-access maintenance hatch beneath the eastern side. They'll plant it here, he said. Low visibility, enough structural damage to collapse the dome. Max casualties, limited footprint. Leah stared down at the crude sketch. Then we disarm it. She stood. We don't wait, we don't tell. We stop it ourselves. In 10 days, they'd either walk across that stage or die beneath it. Chapter 2. A visit from the mod. Leah Douglas didn't cry at Professor Vickers' funeral. Not because she wasn't grieving, she was, but because there wasn't time. His death didn't just hollow out the department, it signaled escalation. He had passed her the drive, warned her about the police, and then died in his own office chair. Natural causes? Hardly. The man ran triathlons and lived on muesli. No, Vickers didn't die, he was neutralized. It wasn't even a real funeral. No family, no colleagues, no eulogy, just a quiet cremation and an official university bulletin. The Faculty of Social and Political Science regrets to announce the passing of Dr. Alan Vickers. He will be remembered fondly. There was no mention of his work, no mention of his students. They were erasing him. Surveillance confirmed Dylan, who'd been living off the university grid since decrypting the drive, appeared that evening on Leah's doorstep. Hood up, phone battery removed, carrying an ancient pay-as-you-go burner wrapped in foil. We've got at least 3 teams watching us, he said. One driving a white Peugeot. 2 on foot, military posture. Might be ex-Gurkhas or private firm, too clean for civilians. Private, she asked. He nodded. XMOD, subcontractors, plenty of them floating around ever since the Blackwatch budget cuts. Shadow men for rent. They watched from the bay window of Leia's third-floor flat, lights off. The car outside didn't move, but every hour, someone inside it took a photo of the building. Departmental reassignment. The next day, the University of Edinburgh sent out a bulk email to all students enrolled in Dr. Vickers' course. It read, "To ensure continuity of instruction, all outstanding thesis advisement will now be overseen by Dr. Helen McTiernan." Leah had never heard of Dr. McTiernan. Neither had Dylan. She looked up her staff profile. The page had been created that morning. No photo. Just a brief line. Research interests, constitutional crisis, strategic policy planning. Too specific. Too convenient. Leah opened the university staff directory. McTiernan's office was listed in a building scheduled for asbestos abatement, one that had been shuttered for the past 4 months. The visitors. That afternoon, Leah was in the common room of the School of Social and Political Science, eyes on her laptop, headphones in, but no music playing. She saw them come in. 2 men in plain grey suits, clean shoes, pressed collars. One carried a black folder, the other carried nothing at all. So they didn't speak to staff. They didn't wait at reception. They walked directly to the late Dr. Vickers' office. A minute later, Leah leaned casually on the counter as they passed. The folder was labelled Op Renovation. She caught the other man's ID badge just before he turned it inward. Mod Liaison, Red Level Clearance. Name, Thomas A. Ellery. Red Level meant counter-subversion. Internal threats to state stability. Something that didn't exist publicly. Something Parliament had never ratified, near the Old College Score. The locker. After dark, Dylan took her to the athletics locker room near the Old College Sports Hall. A quiet, rarely used set of storage units accessible via a side door students didn't even know existed. Inside Locker 17, 3 burner phones, a printed map of McEwen Hall, and a flash drive with Vickers' full unredacted thesis materials. Leah opened the files. There was a folder called Domestic Correction Phase 1, Target Sector B, Academic. Inside, photos of students, including her, Dylan, Mia, and others. A psychological risk profile chart, projected public reaction matrices, timeline markers ending in August 4th, Operation Crucible. "They've tagged us as destabilization threats," Dylan said. "This isn't about national security. This is narrative control." The puzzle, Ben Calder, still hadn't returned any messages, nor had Alexei. Leah dug into their shared folders. Everything was gone, not deleted, purged. Even the university IT admin claimed no record of Ben's student login. They weren't just silencing, they were vanishing people. The tip on a hunch, Leah sent a blank email with an old backdoor cipher to a single address left in one of Vickers' metadata fields, h.grant@police.scot. It bounced. She tried a second, less encrypted version. This time, it went through. The next morning, she received an unmarked envelope slid under her door. Inside, a single page, a mobile number, a short message in all caps. "Meet me. Princess Street Gardens. No phones. No tail." The signature was scribbled in quick, sharp letters. "Die Fiona Grant," he replied. "Civilian disobedience." Dylan didn't trust it. Could be bait. "Then I'll take the risk," Leah said, "because we're going to need allies. Real ones, not just data." "At least, let me follow you," he replied. She shook her head. "You follow, we both die. They're watching." She would go alone. The Mossiers when the bit. The meeting under the Balmoral Hotel clock tower. Leah sat on a bench with a decoy book in her lap. Democracy in Crisis, Essays from the Edge. A bit on the nose, maybe, but no one would stop to read it. A woman sat beside her. Dark coat, ginger streak in her hair, sharp eyes. Holding a Pret coffee. "Miss Douglas?" "Detective Inspector Grant, I assume?" No formalities. Grant got right to it. "We've had 6 disappearances in 2 months, all tied to the political science faculty. No bodies, no CCTV, no inquiries launched. We think there's a bomb being planted under McEwen Hall." Leah slow. "A false flag. Operation Crucible. Look it up." "Already did." Grant handed her a file. Inside, photos of the 2 mod men, Ellery and his partner. Surveillance stills. transport logs for unmarked vans headed toward the university at night. They're already inside, Grant said. Whatever you're doing, you've got a week. Then we start now, Leah replied. They weren't students anymore. They were insurgents in a war no one believed was happening. Chapter 3. The culling begins. The first obituary didn't even make the paper. Alexei Reed was declared missing on a Monday. By Wednesday, the university registrar had quietly removed him from the graduation roster. By Friday, a shallow notice appeared on a university blog, attributing his absence to mental health leave. But Leah had seen the footage, captured by Dylan through a compromised traffic cam feed, grainy but clear. Alexei being shoved into the back of a white transit van at the Bristow Place roundabout. Struggling, yelling, two figures wearing high-vis jackets. Security? Not quite. His phone was never turned on again. The culling had begun. The death of a ghost. The death of a ghost. Ben Calder had been in Leah's class since first year. Quiet, methodical. The sort of person who double encrypted his flash drives and alphabetized his bookshelf. Paranoid, but in a productive way. He missed a scheduled group call, then another. Leah used a backdoor IP trace on their shared server and triangulated a last login from a co-working space in Leith. When she and Dylan arrived, the staff said no one matching Ben's photo had ever checked in, but the CCTV said otherwise. He was here, Dylan muttered, pointing to the timestamp. Then, nothing. Cut feed. Data void. Someone had erased him. Not just physically, digitally. His dissertation submission? Gone. Email? Terminated. His flat was suddenly sublet. They were being deleted. A night visit. That night, Leah was jolted awake by a sound. Not loud, just wrong. She crept to the window and pulled the blind an inch. A black van sat idling across the street. No plates, tinted windows, no movement. But the engine was running, watching. She backed away, heart thudding. She wanted to scream, call someone, do something. Instead, she grabbed her laptop and did what she always did. She documented. Every timestamp, every vehicle, every facial feature of anyone she could catch on camera. Uploading to a cloud server she and Dylan set up the day Vickers died. A small form of resistance. Disinformation. Then came the news stories. Radical student cell linked to Russian disinformation. University conspiracy theorists under investigation. Political science graduates share extremist materials. One even featured a photo of Dylan from 3 years ago at a protest against cuts to veteran mental health services. They were being framed. This is the pretext, Dylan said, pacing. They push these articles, pin a staged bombing on us, and sweep in like saviors. Crisis actors, national unity, Article 42 suspension, it's textbook. How many people do you think are involved? Leah asked. He hesitated. Enough to make the PM irrelevant. The rook in the hall. Leah spotted him during a fire drill at McEwen Hall. Tall, civilian clothes, but standing like military. Square jaw, telltale earpiece just peeking beneath short hair. Not university security. Not there for show. She tried to follow him after the crowd dispersed. He ducked through a locked access door marked janitorial only and didn't come back out. Dylan later confirmed that door led to the Undercroft, the space directly beneath the dome, where the bomb would likely be planted. Tracking the cargo. Fiona Grant came through again. A tip. An unlisted vehicle convoy was seen entering a restricted site in West Lothian, an old munitions depot supposedly decommissioned in 2009. Using a drone, Dylan captured low-res video of crates marked audio equipment being offloaded by unmarked operatives. That's your delivery, Grant said. They'll move it into McEwen Hall under the cover of graduation AV logistics. How do we intercept it? Leah asked. You don't. You expose it, force them to backpedal, or we disarm it ourselves. The students' resistance. The remaining members of the thesis group, those not missing or dead, were brought back into the fold. Sophie Lynn, studying in Glasgow, tracked digital signals through the Tor network and found matching routing codes from military subnetworks. Omar Ibrahim, cybersecurity major, built a proxy mirror of the Upper Renovatio server. Dylan Rahim, tactical operator, now acting like he was back in uniform, coordinating logistics, rotations, fallback plans. Leah Douglas, the voice, the face, the one who would take the message public if it came to that. They moved their base of operations to an abandoned lecture theatre in George Square Annex, running power from an old film projector room. Every decision now mattered. Every hour had weight. The fracture. But the paranoia was spreading. Omar began suspecting Sophie. Sophie started encrypting her messages, even to Leah. Dylan pulled back, quieter, colder. "This is what they want," Leah said. "Distrust, silence, fear." "Fear keeps people alive," Dylan shot back. That night, Leah sat in the gloom of the annex, staring at the projector screen as if answers might flicker across it like celluloid ghosts. Ben, Mia, Alexei, Vickers. The culling wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Remove enough of a group, and the survivors start turning on each other. "We hold," she whispered to herself. "We hold together." The countdown. 5 days until graduation. McEwen Hall's event infrastructure was rolling in. Rigs, lights, staging. Among it, the crate from West Lothian. No inspection. No paperwork. Dylan followed it in. He texted Leah from a maintenance duct under the main auditorium. Found it. Wired. Remote trigger. Shaped charges. Too professional to be amateur. "Can we disarm it?" she replied. "Not alone. We need help. Real help." Then we bring her in. The Alliance Leah contacted DI Grant again. This time, not with information, but with a request. "We need your bomb squad. Quietly." "You won't get it," Grant said. "Command already suspects I'm freelancing. If I make a request like that, I'll be pulled. Then get us an ex-bomb tech. Someone off books. Someone you trust." There was a pause. Then, "I know a guy. He owes me a favor." The culling hadn't broken them. Not yet. But the next move had to be perfect. Because the last person they'd lose might be each other. Chapter 4. Bomb Under the Dome. McEwen Hall was humming. Graduation was now 4 days away. The university's crowning jewel, its sandstone dome towering above Bristow Square, had become a hive of activity. Staging crews, AV technicians, security personnel, parents arriving early to scout seating. Everything appeared ordinary. And yet, beneath the marble floor and ceremonial pride, was enough explosive to take out the entire building and everyone in it. This was no DIY terror job. The device Dylan found wasn't a bundle of wires and ideology. It was military grade, shaped for upward force to direct the blast and bring the dome crashing down onto the auditorium. A clean collapse, dozens dead, hundreds wounded, and a media narrative ready-made for crisis headlines. Foreign extremist cell targets UK's brightest. Graduates massacred at historic Scottish Hall. PM declares national emergency. The kind of headlines that cleared the way for martial law. The bomb Dylan had found it wedged into the stone recess behind a locked panel labelled acoustic dampening chamber. In truth, it hadn't been there the day before, which meant the conspirators were still making final adjustments. "They're fine-tuning the payload," he whispered through the headset. "Which means it's live," Leah replied. "Not just live, controlled. This isn't timer-based. It's triggered. Remote? Most likely. Wi-Fi uplink or shortwave burst." She swallowed. That meant someone would be inside the hall during the ceremony. A spotter, a signalman, or a scapegoat in case something went wrong. The technician DI Grant's contact arrived without fanfare. Name, Neil Farrow, former Royal Engineers, now working as a refrigeration tech in Inverness. Tall, bearded, looked like someone who owned more fishing rods than phones. "Grant says you've got a bomb in a church," he said flatly, examining the floor plan Dylan handed him. "You students sure know how to party." "It's not a church," Leah said. "It's a state-sanctioned kill box." Farrow whistled as he ran his hand over the schematics. "What you're describing isn't just an explosive, it's a narrative weapon. Collapses the dome, makes a martyr out of the moment. All they need is a culprit and a camera. Can you defuse it?" "Not if I'm caught. Not without a diversion." "Then we'll get you one," Dylan said. The diversion. The plan came together fast. Phase 1. Get Leah and Dylan inside the staging crew with forged university badges. Phase 2. Trigger a false fire alarm during final AV testing. While evacuation proceeds, Farrow goes below through the janitorial access to disarm the device. Phase 3. Extract via side door during the confusion. "It has to look like nothing happened," Leah said. "If the bomb goes missing, they'll know. If the bomb goes off, we're dead. The only win is stopping it, quietly." The silence of survival. Fire drill. The next morning, they ran the plan. Leah and Dylan entered McEwen Hall wearing high-vis jackets with forged AV IDs. Dylan kept close to the rear entrance, feeding Farrow a live feed via microcamera from his shirt collar. Farrow waited in a supply van across the street, dressed as a contractor. "Signal me when you've eyes on the janitorial access," he said. Leah slipped behind a curtain, activated a hidden fire alarm override, and hit the trigger. The alarm blared. Staff flooded out the main doors. Farrow moved. Down the side, through the garden-level service path, into the ductwork. His flashlight flickered as he reached the bomb chamber. Below the dome, Farrow's voice came in low over the mic. "Target confirmed. Pack is military issue, fused with dual-trigger redundancy, remote burst capable. TTL indicates it's active." "Very dirty." "Can you disarm it?" Leah asked. "Yeah, but not with gloves on." "Excuse me? The arming mechanism is pressure-sensitive. If I don't match the angle exactly, the charge will detonate." He paused. "Gotta feel it, not cut it." It was madness, but he'd done this before. Farrow unplugged the uplink first, severing the trigger's communication circuit. Then, using a set of dental tools, he worked the detonator loose. Each second stretched like a lifetime. Then, devices cold. They had done it. Farrow slipped out. The aftermath. The hall was evacuated. The alarm passed off as a faulty sensor. No suspicions raised. Farrow slipped out, carrying the device, disarmed and wrapped in blackout foil, inside a janitorial trash bin. "Where do we put it?" Dylan asked. "Somewhere no one would look," Farrow said. "Somewhere symbolic," Leah added. St. Giles. That night, under the shroud of darkness, they climbed the steep hill to St. Giles's Cathedral. Farrow had hollowed out a void in a long disused crypt vault. He placed the bomb inside, nestled in stone, a relic of a plan that failed. "Church over state," he muttered. Leah nodded, but her heart didn't ease. This was only one device. What if there's more? The pushback. The next morning, the bomb wasn't mentioned in the news, but a different headline took its place. "Security tightened at Edinburgh graduation after vandalism threat." They were spinning it, prepping the public for a new threat, one they could still manufacture. "They'll try again," Leah said. "Then we'll be ready," Dylan replied. The dome still stood, but the war for truth had just begun. One bomb disarmed, one ceremony intact, and one enemy still watching. Chapter 5. Fringe Allies. The morning after the disarmament, Edinburgh looked the same. Rain on stone, seagulls over the castle, buses grumbling down Nicholson Street. But Leah Douglas felt different. She had defused a bomb. Not with her own hands, no, but she'd been part of it. The planning, the execution, the aftermath. And now, the silence. Too silent. "They know," Dylan said as they walked through the university quad, "that we took it, that it didn't go off, which is worse. A failed detonation invites questions. An unexplained cancellation invites paranoia. The conspirators wouldn't risk another bomb, not the same way, which meant they'd adapt." The counter-narrative. The next move came fast. An anonymous blog post seeded across Reddit and WhatsApp groups claimed that radicalized students were plotting to attack McEwen Hall during graduation. It named no names, but it included a blurry CCTV frame of Leah at the fire panel. A second image showed Dylan inside the AV tent. "They're painting us as the bombers," Leah muttered, staring at the post on her phone. "And when the next attack happens," Dylan added, "they'll say we slipped through the cracks." Unless we flip the narrative. How? We leak. The leak. Sophie Lynn had already started compiling the data, IP traces, the original Oprah Renovatio files, video stills of the crate arriving at McEwen Hall. She used an onion routing chain and pushed the folder to 4 journalists across the UK. 3 would ignore it. But the 4th was Gareth Pollock, freelance investigative writer for Bylines UK. He used to work Modi adjacent, Sophie said. Left after Syria. Doesn't trust institutions anymore. Perfect, Leah replied. McCorn. A message from the shadows. 3 hours after the leak, Leah received an untraceable call. A disguised voice. Male. Calm. "If you publish what you think you have, people will die. You most likely. But not just you. You're threatening me? I'm warning you." Of what? A pause. Of patriotism done badly. Then the call cut off. Gareth Pollock. He appeared in person, to Leah's surprise. Met them at a pub near the Grassmarket under the pretense of writing a tourism piece on Edinburgh's most haunted places. He was in his 50s, rumpled jacket, leather satchel, kind eyes sharpened by experience. "I believe you," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Because I've seen a version of this before." Inside were photocopies, 1980s ministry memos outlining a failed contingency plan to suspend Parliament after the Brixton riots, codenamed Operation Borealis. It had the same patterns: disinformation, planted explosives, media control, preemptive arrests. "They didn't go through with it," Gareth said, sipping his pint. "But they never stopped planning." "You'll publish?" Leah asked. "I'll release it as fiction, a speculative thriller based on unnamed sources. That's not enough. It's the only way it'll survive." Inside Parliament, Leah had avoided her father for weeks. MP Thomas Douglas had once been a firebrand backbencher, but now he was neutered, benign, cautious part of the party machine. Still, he had access. She visited his Westminster flat in London, posing as a daughter needing a place to sleep. That night, she copied his encrypted files. Inside, communications between a small cluster of MPs and unnamed military consultants. References to public opinion pressure tests, narrative softening phases, and something called the Pendragon Clause. "Your dad's not involved," Dylan said as they decrypted the messages, "but he's close to those who are." Then I'll use that. The students rise. 3 days before graduation, Leah leaked a video, not to the press, but to the student body. She appeared in shadow, her voice digitally altered, reading the opening of their thesis aloud. "Democracy does not fall by force, it falls by permission, and permission is granted when fear overpowers truth." The video showed their edited footage: the crates arriving, the planted explosives, the false alarm, the disarmament, the mod men entering the hall. It didn't matter if it was believed by everyone, it just had to be believed by enough. The fringe support came not from Parliament or press, but from the fringe. Extinction Rebellion hackers mirrored the files. Anonymous UK boosted the video. Student unions across Britain staged silent protests, wearing black mortarboards with red duct tape across their mouths. The hashtag #degrees of treason, trending, viral, impossible to ignore. Retaliation. The response was swift. A leaked counterclaim suggested Leah and Dylan were foreign agents. Their bank records were hacked. Photos from Leah's teenage years were doctored to show her at anti-UK rallies that never happened. Dylan's military service was reclassified as dishonorable. "They're shredding us," he said, dead-eyed. "Let them," Leah replied. "The more they attack, the more they prove we're a threat." The Turn. Gareth Pollock published his piece at midnight. A Game of Shadows is the UK preparing for a controlled coup. Fiction, speculation, quotes from unnamed sources. But it exploded. Talk radio, Twitter, late-night panel shows, conspiracy forums turned into legitimate concern. And then, the Prime Minister's motorcade was rerouted. They were no longer just students. They were insurgents of truth, armed with data, conviction, and a network too big to erase. Chapter 6. Countdown to Detonation. 72 hours. That's how long remained until the ceremony at McEwen Hall. And despite everything, the disarmed bomb, the viral leak, the exposé disguised as fiction, Leah knew something worse was coming. Because their enemies weren't backing off. They were regrouping. "They'll use a different method," Dylan said. "Not another bomb, something quieter or louder, but something." "Do we evacuate?" Leah asked. "They'd call it incitement, say we were sowing panic." It was too late to cancel the ceremony, too late to halt the plans, too late to disappear. The trap had already been baited. The only question now, who would be inside the hall when it snapped shut? Now he was back. The watcher in the crowd, Leah had seen him before, once outside her flat, once near the engineering labs. Same man, mid-40s, shaved head, cold eyes. She started calling him the Watcher. Now he was back, posing as a security contractor, badge forged, earpiece in, watching rehearsals, watching her. "That's not a stagehand," Dylan muttered. "That's their signalman." To trigger the event? To coordinate it. And he was never alone, always near another fake AV tech. a soundboard operator, a lighting rig rigger, all of them clustered around the catwalk scaffolding. "They're planning something from above," Dylan said. "Like what?" Leah asked. "Gas, fire, or another blast. Small, directional, but still lethal." Inside McEwen. They walked the route, down the ceremonial corridor, through the double oak doors, onto the main floor. From above, the stained glass dome radiated sunlight across hundreds of empty seats. "Where's the kill zone?" Leah asked. Dylan pointed. "Front left quarter, high density, best target for chaos. Most of our cohort sits there." They looked up. Nestled between support beams was a matte black cylinder, disguised among the lighting fixtures. "That's new," Dylan whispered. "Camera? No. Dispenser, probably accelerant. If it ignites mid-ceremony, it'll be a firestorm." The final piece. Fiona Grant was officially suspended. The reason? Procedural misconduct. Unofficially, she was too close to the truth. She met Leah and Dylan in a derelict B&B near Haymarket. No phones, no signals. "They've blocked me out," she said, "but I've still got access to the city grid, emergency response, CCTV triggers, some airwave traffic." "We found the new payload," Leah said, hidden above the audience. "I'll get the fire marshal to inspect it. They'll be bribed, then we sabotage it ourselves." She handed Leah a device. "Magnetic RF jammer, localized. Stick it to the control module. It'll scramble the signal and short the receiver. Buy you time. And if it doesn't work, run." The guest list. They discovered the second layer of the plan the night before the ceremony. Sophie had hacked the university's reserved seating database and compared it to Parliament's internal visitor register. 6 MPs were scheduled to attend, not for their own children, but as dignitaries. Every one of them had been linked to the OP Renovatio chain. "They want to be in the room," Dylan said, "to control the aftermath. Or to ensure the explosion happens no matter what," Leah added. "They'll walk out seconds before the event, just enough to save themselves." Martyrs and survivors. They want to be in levers. The letter. Leah wrote one letter, handwritten, signed, no encryption. It was addressed to her father. "If you're reading this," she wrote, "something went wrong, but please know that we tried. We didn't run. We stood up, like you used to." She left it with Gareth Pollock. "Release it only if we don't walk out," she told him. He said nothing, just nodded. Just nodded. Ceremony day. Graduation morning was unnaturally bright. Students gathered in gowns and mortarboards, posing in front of the hall, blissfully unaware. Families smiled, proud and oblivious. Leah and Dylan moved through the AV rig disguised as technicians, the RF jammer concealed in Leah's bag, its LED blinking once every 10 seconds. The watcher was there. So were the rogue MPs, smiling for cameras, shaking hands with faculty. It was all theatre. The infiltration. Leah climbed the narrow steel stairs toward the catwalk, weaving between pulleys and rigging. The device was where they'd seen it, cylindrical, wired. A control box next to it with an antenna array. She placed the jammer against the housing, pressed the magnet hard until it clicked. LED red, then green, then off. "It's working," she whispered. "Get out now," Dylan's voice crackled. The interference. As she descended, she spotted the watcher again, talking into his mic, face twisted. He was getting static. "We jammed it," she whispered to Dylan. "Now we leave." But it was too late. The confrontation. The watcher moved toward them, quick, determined. Behind him, 2 of his AV men. Leah and Dylan ducked backstage, winding through curtains and cases. Then, bam, a fist through the plywood wall beside them. "You little traitors," the watcher growled. "You don't know what's at stake." "Democracy," Leah snapped. "That's what's at stake." "Democracy's already dead." Dylan shoved a lighting rig into the path and grabbed Leah's hand. They bolted through the loading dock exit as sirens wailed outside. The revelation. A tweet hit the airwaves. Breaking, attempted arson plot at McEwen Hall, foiled by university staff. Photos of the device circulated. So did a blurry image of Leah. But this time, the comments were different. "She warned us. They tried to make her the villain. Now they look like the terrorists." Public opinion turned. And the MPs? They left the building early, but were stopped by security. Their diplomatic excuses no longer worked. The tide was shifting. They hadn't stopped the graduation. They'd exposed graduation. They'd exposed the truth. And now, the real reckoning would begin. Chapter 7. Conviction or Cowardice. The bomb never went off, but neither did the news explode the way it should have. No breaking BBC special, no government apology, no arrests of rogue MPs in full view of Parliament, just confusion. Silence. Misdirection, the kind that eats away at a population slowly, like mold behind wallpaper. Leah Douglas had thought exposing the truth would bring justice. Instead, it brought bureaucracy. Detained. She and Dylan were detained. Not arrested, but processed. Held for 9 hours under the guise of protective custody, then released without charges. No mention of the AV imposters. No mention of the explosive canister. The official story? A minor electrical fault, mistaken for an arson attempt. AV technicians misidentified in the chaos. "We disarmed a bomb," Dylan told the officer. "That's not in my notes," the officer replied. "Then your notes are fiction." "That's above my pay grade." The Forked Road. After their release, DI Fiona Grant met them in the shadow of Calton Hill. She'd been demoted, reassigned to Traffic Division in Arbroath. But she hadn't stopped digging. "They've cordoned off McEwen's Undercroft," she said. "Classified the case. External contractors are renovating." "Renovating what?" Leah asked. "Evidence. History." She handed over a list of names: military, political, private sector. "You want to bring this down for real? Start with them. But it's not a war you can win overnight." "Then we'll fight it in daylight," Leah replied. She handed over a list of names: Parliament. Her father called the next morning. MP Thomas Douglas sounded tired. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" "Because I wasn't sure you were still the man who used to protest outside number 10 with a cardboard sign and a bloody nose." Silence. "Are you?" "They think you're a threat, Leah. A legitimate threat." "Good. Then I'm finally doing something right." He sighed. "There's going to be an internal hearing. Closed doors. Select committee. You won't be called to testify, but your name will come up. Let it. The smear." The press turned again. New editorials emerged accusing Leah and Dylan of coordinated radical activism. Pundits questioned their motives, suggested they were backed by foreign influence. One anchor even implied they faked the explosive for clout. "They're panicking," Gareth Pollock said. "The more noise they make, the more you live rent-free in their fears." "Then we turn up the volume," Leah replied. The university's response. The University of Edinburgh quietly postponed future events at McEwen Hall, pending inspection. Leah was asked not to attend the graduation after-party. Dylan was removed from the Student Veterans Honours list. Their thesis, never graded, marked as unsubmitted. "They're erasing our work," Leah said. "Then we publish it ourselves," Dylan replied. They did. Degrees of Treason, the collapse of democratic safety nets in modern Britain, self-published, circulated freely, downloaded 1.2 million times in the first 2 weeks. Gareth's revelation. Gareth arrived at the annex with something new. A classified memo, forwarded by a disillusioned staffer on the inside. It was stamped with the words, Project Pendragon, long-form activation sequence. Inside, references to psychological operations, digital chaos strategies, and backup narratives tied to economic collapse scenarios. The line that stood out: in the event of failed civic disruption, introduce alternate pressures: inflation, migration panic, energy strain. Let the public beg for control. The bomb was just Act 1. The line that stood out: conviction. Leah stood on the steps of McEwen Hall. This time, not as a graduate, but as a speaker, invited by the Students' Free Press Coalition to address what really happened. "We were almost martyrs," she said, "but we chose to fight instead of burn." She paused. Conviction isn't loud. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's just staying upright when the world wants you erased. The crowd erupted. Not massive, but enough. Was part of the cowardice. Later that night, Dylan handed her a folded newspaper. The front page featured a photo of MP Judith Rain, the hardliner they believed was part of the inner circle. The headline: Rain to resign amid health concerns, denies all allegations. No charges, no admission, no justice, just quiet retreat. "They're letting her vanish," Leah said. "They always do," Dylan replied. "We don't." They had a choice: conviction or cowardice. They chose to stand, even when no one clapped. Chapter 8. Broadcast and Blowback. They had evidence, they had motive, they had truth, but truth without visibility is silence. If the conspirators could erase digital trails, muddy media narratives, and silence insiders, Leah and Dylan knew they had only one move left. Go public. So public they couldn't be ignored. So loud they couldn't be dismissed. The broadcast plan. Gareth Pollock helped them set it up. A 1-hour live stream from inside McEwen Hall, empty now, awaiting long-term inspection. The plan: deliver their full thesis as a presentation, show the footage, name names, display documents. We'll get taken offline, Dylan warned. Not if we mirror it across 50 channels, Sophie Lynn replied. Torrent it, embed fail-safes, auto-uploads, back up to the blockchain. We'll get doxed. Already have, Leah said. What's left to lose? They were already enemies of the machine. Might as well speak like it. Going live. They scheduled it for Sunday at 8 p.m. Leah stood behind the podium where she'd have received her diploma. Now she was delivering a manifesto. The camera panned slowly. Lighting stark, the words rehearsed but raw. My name is Leah Douglas. I am a graduate of political science. I am not a terrorist. I am not a liar. I am a witness. She clicked a remote. Slides filled the screen. OP renovation project flowcharts, email logs between rogue MPs and defense contractors, blueprints of bomb placement beneath McEwen Hall. This is not theory. This is not speculation. This is a plan, a real one, signed, activated, and narrowly executed, against you. Then came the videos, Dylan's camera feed during the bomb disarmament, the Watcher, the rooftop accelerant rig. She ended with the line from their thesis. Democracy does not fall by force. It falls by permission. We revoke ours now. The reaction. It spread like wildfire. Within an hour, 3.4 million live viewers across mirrored channels. #degrees of treason trending worldwide. Thousands of universities posting solidarity images. Students in black gowns, mouths taped shut. The mainstream media tried to bury it. They failed. You couldn't kill a ghost once it had gone viral. Blowback. 2 days later, they were summoned to an unofficial inquiry in London. Windowless room, 8 MPs, no press, no lawyers. One man asked, "Do you understand the national security implications of what you've done?" Leah stared back, "Do you?" They left with no answers, but word leaked, and suddenly, silence. The snapback backlash came swift. Leah's bank account frozen pending review. Dylan's military pension suspended. Sophie received legal threats from a media integrity group no one had heard of. But every time the system pushed back, more people joined. The University of Sussex offered them an honorary award. A Norwegian newspaper published their thesis in full. The Guardian ran a piece titled, "Who Tried to Silence the Students of Edinburgh?" Collapse of the rogue MPs. Lord Merton suffered a stroke. Another, Judith Rain, resigned completely and disappeared. Colonel Sutherland? Nowhere to be found. Rumours placed him in Qatar. Others said Chile. Leah believed he was underground, waiting for the next activation. Because these people didn't retire. They paused. She didn't stop checking over her shoulder. New direction. 6 weeks later, Gareth Pollock met them at a canal-side cafe in Glasgow. "I've got a publisher," he said, "wants to do the full story, not just an op-ed, a book, documentary rights included." "Will it help?" Dylan asked. "Maybe. Maybe not, but it plants the seed." "We don't want royalties," Leah said. "You won't get any." Gareth smirked. Final footnote. Leah received one last message through a secure server. No sender. No traceable code. Just a single sentence. "You're not finished. You're just visible." She deleted it, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she finally understood what came next. They weren't fighting a coup. They were fighting the idea of a coup, the normalization of shadows, the permission of control. The Maurice Capsam. They didn't win, but they didn't vanish. And that, for now, was enough. Epilogue. The hall remains. McEwen Hall still stands. The scaffolding has come down. The plaques have been polished. Tourists now pose in front of its curved sandstone facade, unaware that the building was once hours from being reduced to ash. There is no memorial, no plaque, no what could have happened here. Because officially, nothing did. The story faded from headlines. Politicians moved on. Public anger turned to the next outrage, as it always does. But not for Leah Douglas. 1 year later, she teaches now. Not at Edinburgh, of course. That bridge was burned. But across the sea, in Iceland, a visiting lecturer in Reykjavik. Her course title, Resilience in Post-Democratic Societies. There are only 12 students. Some know who she is. Others just think she's intense. She doesn't mention bombs, or conspiracies, or rogue MPs. Instead, she teaches them to listen to patterns, to map the flow of power, to ask who benefits from silence. Dylan, he lives in Lisbon now, walks dogs, fixes boats, keeps his head down. But once a month, he checks the email address Leah gave him, the dead drop. Just in case. Sometimes it's empty, sometimes it's not. Last month, there was a link to a speech in the House of Lords, a minor lord referencing domestic response contingencies in relation to future protests. A whisper of something stirring again. Dylan replied with a one-word email, still here. Sophie and Grant. Sophie Lynn now works for a transparency nonprofit based in Berlin. They publish unredacted intelligence reports, carefully, legally, strategically, sometimes too strategically for her taste. Grant stayed in Scotland. She never got her rank back, but she became something else, a mentor. She trains a quiet circle of young officers in what she calls anti-subversion integrity, teaching them how to smell lies before they wear uniforms. No one's immune, she says. Even us. Gareth Pollock's book. It was released under a fictional title, Shadows Beneath the Stone, marketed as a novel. But those who knew, knew. It was banned in 2 countries, quoted in 3 university lectures. Topped Amazon's political thriller charts for a month. Leah never read it. It wasn't a story, she said. It was survival. Her father, Thomas Douglas, retired from politics 6 months after the scandal, cited health and family. The truth, he saw the machine from inside and could no longer live with it. They speak sometimes, never about that. But sometimes he sends her clippings, stories of whistleblowers, young MPs, and the smallest cracks in the facade. Keep watching, he writes. The seams will split. And the hall. They reopened it last week, freshly painted, upgraded AV rig, new Wi-Fi routers. Leah watched the reopening ceremony from her laptop. The Vice-Chancellor spoke at the podium. This hall has endured, through war, through change, through time. It will always be a beacon for what is possible. She smiled, because she knew the truth. It had almost been a tomb. Now it was something else. A monument to a battle no one believed was fought. And she was still fighting it. Some revolutions are loud. Others begin with silence and survive because someone refused to let the quiet win. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.